the second last week of September, which means fall is closely approaching. And with more on the crop report for this week, we've got Matt Struthers.
Thanks for having me back.
And so to start off, Matt, let's talk about the Northwest region here in Lloyd and kind of how the yields have been looking so far and how many producers have already started or finished up their crop harvesting so far this year.
Yeah, so up in the Northwest and towards Lloydminster there, there was a few rain delays, of course. The last week there was a few storms that rolled through, and that cool, damp weather isn't the best for harvest. It wasn't across the whole region, but of course, a few places were held up. For the region, they're sitting at 63% of their crop now in the bin. So lots of producers are out there and getting that crop in, and you know that's pretty good for right now. Usually at this time, the 5-year average is 41%. So they're well ahead of their 5-year average. And that's likely due to the southern half of that region, the West Central, or the Northwest region, being a bit drier than the north half of it. And then they were just able to get into their fields a little bit quicker. On the sense of yields, off the top of my head, I remember yields coming out of that region being a little closer to average or a little bit above average. They got lucky with some timely rainfalls this summer, and that really helped keep those yields up in the northern half of that region. Again, the southern half of that region still very dry in some areas, and pastures and cropland struggled.
And so now let's take a look at the rest of Saskatchewan. We've been talking a lot that the southern half of Saskatchewan has been mostly finishing up and has most of their grain in the bin. Has that mostly become completely true as everybody's finishing up down there? And then for the rest of the regions of Saskatchewan, how has it been looking here as we get closer and closer to the end of September?
So the Southwest is at 96% of the crop in the bin, mostly just waiting on some flax to finish up, and maybe some pesky canola that stems stayed green. So maybe there's the last little bit of that. Same with the West Central. They're sitting at 89% of their crop in the bin. So again, they'll be finishing up here very quickly. The eastern regions, so the Southeast and the East Central and up into the north there, they're above 50. I can't remember all of their averages, but they're above 50 but below 70. So they still got some work to do. Of course, that's not a big surprise to anybody. They just had some conditions that pushed harvest a little later, and now they've had some rain here that delayed them 4 or 5 days in some spots. So hopefully the weather improves. And they just need some dry days to get that crop off, and then once it's all over and done with, we can let the heavens open up and finally get some rain.
The thing we've been talking about throughout the year has been not the best hay crop for a good portion of the province. And you've just been mentioning that we want to see a little bit more rain right about now. Would that timely rain that would come for those producers in the Southwest, would that be able to perhaps save a little bit of money for them to get a bit more hay so that those cattle producers and producers of all livestock would have some feed for their animals?
Likely too late to get any hay off, especially down here in the south. It would take some time and a substantial amount of water to get any regrowth that you'd be able to cut. But the nice thing about any rain we get now would allow those that grassland or that pasture land and hayland to just regrow and kind of reset itself up. So when we go through the winter and then eventually into the spring, when those cattle are put back out on those pastures, there's something there for them. If we don't get any rain here in the fall, it doesn't get that time to recover. And then in the spring, if there's no moisture, those cattle are put out and it's dry. So we need that moisture now to get that regrowth for the freeze up, and then again, get some moisture in there in the spring.
Thank you so much for all the information once again, Matt, and we'll hopefully see you next week for the next crop report.
Sounds good.